There is a question that every person who has ever watched Queen perform with Adam Lambert has felt, even if they have not said it out loud. Not a hostile question, not a dismissive one, but an honest one that sits underneath everything. Who is this for? Is it for the fans who need to see the songs performed live? Who need to stand in a stadium and hear Bohemian Rhapsody and feel something real, even if the voice singing it is not the voice they grew up with? Is it for Brian May and Roger Taylor, two men in their 70s who have spent their entire adult lives making music and for whom stopping is not a simple or obvious thing? Is it for Adam Lambert, an extraordinarily gifted singer who found himself standing in the center of a legacy that no one person should be expected to carry, and who has carried it anyway with a combination of technique and courage and love that has surprised even the people who trusted him with it? Or is it ultimately and permanently and in every version of the story that matters? For Freddie Mercury, for the music he made and the standard he set and the specific quality of life that he brought to those songs that cannot be replicated, but that can perhaps be honored? Brian May has answered this question in various ways across the 15 years of Queen plus Adam Lambert's existence. What he said to Adam Lambert before their last concert is the most honest answer he has ever given. And it was not said for an audience. It was said in private, between two people who had spent 15 years building something together on the last night of that thing before they walked out to do it one final time. Adam Lambert came into Brian May's awareness in 2009 during the 8th season of American Idol. Brian May has described watching Adam Lambert perform on that program and feeling something that he has compared, carefully and with evident awareness of the weight of the comparison, to the quality of attention that Freddie Mercury commanded, not the voice, not the style, not any specific technical element, but the specific quality of being completely unavoidable, the ability to make a room stop and look, not because of volume or spectacle, but because of presence, because of something in the relationship between the performer and the performance that produces in the audience the involuntary sensation of being in the presence of something real. Brian May saw that quality in Adam Lambert in 2009 and filed it away. He did not act on it immediately, but he remembered it. And 2 years later, when the question of who might sing with Queen at a series of live performances became concrete enough to require an answer, he thought of what he had seen in that young American singer in 2009 and reached out. The conversation that followed between Brian May and Adam Lambert in the period before any formal arrangement had been made has been described by both men in interviews over the years, and the descriptions converge on something that is more complicated and more serious than a business negotiation. Brian May was not offering Adam Lambert a job. He was offering him an inheritance. And both of them understood, with varying degrees of explicitness, what that meant. It meant standing on stages where Freddie Mercury had stood and singing songs that Freddie Mercury had made irreplaceable. It meant accepting that every night, in every arena, there would be people in the audience who were there partly to mourn, who were there because the music connected them to someone they had lost, and whose experience of hearing that music performed live was inseparable from their grief. It meant agreeing to be judged, inevitably and in some cases harshly, against a standard that was not achievable by any living human being. Adam Lambert accepted all of this, not casually, not naively. He accepted it because he understood, with the complete clarity of someone who had grown up loving Queen, exactly what he was agreeing to carry. What Brian May told Adam Lambert in those early conversations about Freddie Mercury specifically, about who Freddie had been as a person rather than as a performer, about the specific texture of what it had been like to share a stage with him for 20 years has never been reported in full. What Adam Lambert has said publicly about those conversations is that they changed his understanding of what he was being asked to do. Not technically, not musically, but at the level of intention. Freddie Mercury had not simply sung Queen songs. He had inhabited them in a way that made every performance feel simultaneously rehearsed to perfection and completely spontaneous, as if the song were being discovered in the moment of its delivery. The craft was invisible. The emotion was total. And Brian May, in those early conversations, was communicating something that cannot be transmitted through a recording or a rehearsal or any amount of instruction. the specific quality of being present with those songs, of refusing to put distance between yourself and the material, of trusting the audience enough to let them see you actually feeling what the lyric says. This was what Freddie had done. This was what Brian May was asking Adam Lambert to do, not to imitate, to be genuinely present. The distinction sounds simple and is in practice one of the most demanding things a performer can be asked to achieve. The first time Queen plus Adam Lambert performed together publicly, the audience did not know what to expect and did not, in the first few seconds, know what they were experiencing. Adam Lambert walked onto a stage in front of an audience that had come to see Queen and had brought with them 40 years of accumulated love and grief and memory, and he opened his mouth and he sang. What followed the specific quality of response in those first few arenas was not what anyone had predicted. It was not polite acceptance. It was not the complicated tolerance of an audience willing to substitute one experience for another. It was something more surprised and more genuine than either of those things. It was the recognition, repeated in arena after arena across multiple continents, that what was happening on this stage was real. That Adam Lambert was not performing the idea of a Queen concert. He was giving the audience an actual one. Brian May, watching from stage right every night, had known this was possible because he had sensed it in 2009 and confirmed it in the conversations that followed. But knowing something is possible and witnessing it happen in front of 80,000 people are different things. He has described those early shows with a quality of emotion in his voice that goes beyond professional satisfaction. The years that followed established something that had not seemed entirely certain at the outset, that Queen plus Adam Lambert was not a tribute act and not a nostalgia vehicle and not a commercially driven exercise in legacy maintenance, but something that had its own integrity and its own reason for existing. Part of this was the music, which was played with the seriousness and the technical ambition that Brian May and Roger Taylor have always brought to performance. Part of it was Adam Lambert's ongoing growth as a performer within this context, the way his relationship with the songs deepened across 15 years of singing them, the way the earlier technical brilliance developed into something warmer and more genuinely emotional as he came to understand, through the accumulation of hundreds of performances and hundreds of backstage conversations with Brian May, what the songs were actually about and what the man who originally sang them had actually been. Brian May talked to Adam Lambert about Freddie Mercury across 15 years of shared touring life, not constantly, not in formal sessions, but in the way that people who spend a great deal of time together talk about the things that matter in fragments, in anecdotes, in the specific stories that arise when a particular song is being sound-checked or a particular city triggers a particular memory. Adam Lambert absorbed all of it, not because he was required to, because he needed to in order to do what he was doing with the integrity it deserved. What Brian May was communicating to Adam Lambert across those 15 years through the explicit conversations about Freddie and through the implicit communication of simply performing these songs together night after night was something about the specific relationship between love and art that Freddie Mercury had understood better than almost anyone. Freddie Mercury had loved his audience in a way that was not performative and not strategic. He had loved the exchange itself, the specific transaction of energy between a performer and 70,000 people that transforms both parties and that cannot be manufactured or faked. He had been willing to be completely vulnerable in that exchange, to give everything he had every night, regardless of what it cost him, because he believed that the audience deserved nothing less, and because the alternative, holding something back, managing the performance from a position of safety, was not something his nature would permit. Brian May had spent 30 years knowing what that looked like from the inside, and he had spent 15 years, through conversation and proximity and shared experience, transmitting as much of that understanding as could be transmitted to the man who was now standing where Freddie had stood. By the time Queen plus Adam Lambert reached the end of their touring life together, Adam Lambert was not the same performer who had accepted Brian May's invitation in 2011. He was not better in any simple technical sense. He had always been extraordinarily gifted. Technically, he was different in a way that is harder to quantify. He had been changed by the experience of being trusted with something of enormous value and discovering that he was capable of honoring that trust. 15 years of standing in front of audiences who had come partly to mourn had given him an understanding of what music is for that most performers spend their entire careers approaching without quite reaching. Music is not entertainment. It is not content. It is the specific human technology for making grief bearable and joy complete, and the experience of being alive in a room full of other living people feels significant and real. Freddie Mercury had known this. Brian May had known it. And across 15 years of performing Queen's music night after night in arenas across the world, Adam Lambert had come to know it in his body in the way that only performance, actual, live, irrepeatable performance can teach. For the last concert, Brian May found Adam Lambert and said what he had to say. The specific words belong to both of them and have not been made fully public, which is appropriate because the conversation was private and the things said in private are not automatically owed to the people outside the room. What Adam Lambert has communicated in interviews given after the final performances is that what Brian May said to him on that last night was not a speech and not a farewell and not a formal acknowledgement of what they had built together. It was something quieter and more direct than any of those things. It was the communication between two people who had known each other for 15 years and who had trusted each other with something irreplaceable, of what that trust had meant and what it had produced. Brian May, who has spent his entire adult life in the specific relationship between music and grief that Queen's story embodies, said to Adam Lambert something that located their 15 years together within a larger continuity, the continuity of Freddie Mercury's music existing in the world, being heard, being felt, being given to new audiences who had not been born when Freddie was alive. That continuity did not end with the final concert. The concerts ended. The continuity did not. The last concert itself was what the last concerts of great touring partnerships tend to be. Simultaneously too much and not enough. Too much emotion in the room, too much consciousness of the significance of the occasion, and not enough time, never enough time for everything that needed to be felt and communicated and released. Brian May and Roger Taylor and Adam Lambert performed with the completeness and the commitment that had characterized every performance of their 15 years together. The set list was the set list that the audiences needed, the songs that carried the most weight, the songs that most directly connected the living performers to the man who was not on that stage and had not been on a stage for 30 years. Adam Lambert sang in those songs with the specific quality that 15 years of singing them had given him. Not imitation, not tribute, but genuine inhabitation of material that had, across the years, become part of who he was. When he sang "We Are the Champions" on that last night, he was not performing a song about triumph. He was performing a song about survival. The audience, who had also survived, understood the difference. What happened to Adam Lambert after that final concert in the days and weeks that followed, in the specific quality of the silence that comes after a 15-year thing has ended, is something he has spoken about with care and a degree of vulnerability that is itself the evidence of what Brian May's trust changed in him. He has described the absence of the touring life as a specific kind of loss that he had not fully anticipated, not because he expected the concerts to continue indefinitely, but because the thing they had been doing together had been so much more than performing. It had been 15 years of sustained contact with the most extraordinary music of the 20th century, with two men who had made that music and who carried its history in their bones, and with a nightly experience of giving something of enormous value to audiences who needed it. Walking away from that even voluntarily, even knowingly, even with the complete clarity of someone who understands that endings are necessary and that this ending was the right one is a loss of a particular and irreplaceable kind. Brian May has spoken about Adam Lambert publicly with a consistency and a warmth that is itself a form of testimony. He has described Adam as someone who understood, at a level that surprised even Brian, what was being asked of him and what it meant. He has said in various interviews that watching Adam Lambert perform Queen songs across 15 years of shared stages gave him something that he had not expected and could not have predicted. The experience of hearing those songs genuinely renewed, not replicated, not preserved in amber. Renewed, given back to the world in a form that connected new audiences to them, that made people who had never seen Queen perform understand what those songs were capable of doing to a room full of human beings. This is not a small thing. For a man who spent 30 years making music with Freddie Mercury and who has lived for 30 more years in the presence of Freddie's legacy, the experience of watching those songs find new life and new audiences is one of the closest things available to the experience of continuation. Brian May is not naive about what was lost when Freddie Mercury died. He knows exactly what was lost. He has lived with that knowledge for 30 years, but he also knows now what was found in 15 years of Queen plus Adam Lambert, in hundreds of concerts across dozens of countries, in the specific and irreplaceable thing that happens when extraordinary music is given to an audience that needs it by a performer who understands what he is holding. What Queen plus Adam Lambert gave to the audiences who attended those concerts across 15 years was not a substitute for the original. No one who went to those concerts believed they were seeing Queen with Freddie Mercury. They were seeing something else, something that was also real and also valuable, and also, in its own way, connected to the thing they loved. They were seeing Brian May and Roger Taylor, two men in their 70s, still playing these songs with the full force of their conviction that the songs matter and that performing them is worth doing. They were seeing Adam Lambert, a singer who came to Queen as a fan and left as something that is harder to name a custodian, perhaps of a portion of Freddie Mercury's musical legacy, someone who had been trusted with something precious and had demonstrated, across 15 years of public performance, that the trust was not misplaced. And somewhere underneath all of it, audible in every performance if you knew how to listen, they were hearing Freddie Mercury in the songs he wrote and in the standard he set and in the specific quality of love for an audience that those songs continue to carry 30 years after his death, every time a room full of human beings hears them and feels something that cannot be explained and does not need to be. What Brian May told Adam Lambert before their last concert was, in the end, a form of the same communication that he had been making across 15 years of conversations and shared stages and the nightly experience of performing the music of a man they had both loved in different ways and at different distances. He was telling Adam Lambert what he had always been telling him, that the music is real, that the love behind it is real, that the people in the audience who need it are real, and that the act of giving it to them with complete honesty and complete commitment is one of the most important things a person can do with whatever gifts they have been given. Adam Lambert has carried that across 15 years and will carry it for the rest of his life. Not as a burden, as the most valuable thing he has ever been trusted with. And that is the thing that Brian May said before the last concert. And that is the thing that has meant Adam Lambert has never been the same since.